So when I'm 10, my mother makes the fairly wise decision of running away from my father and takes myself, my brother, my sister to Virginia, where we live in a trailer park. Um, and we're quite poor. And during this time, I really miss my father. I think that I'm angry at him. I know there was something wrong. There was some reason my mother was afraid of him. There was some reason we ran away. And I put together all these hints of crimes he'd had. He'd beat up somebody pretty seriously. He knocked a man out, and the guy's girlfriend had jumped on his back, and he'd broken her jaw. And I had always had a sense that he was in more trouble than he let on, and that the police took interest in him. He took a lot of interest in banks. Each time I drove by a bank, would tell me about them. So I've been trying to put the hints together. I knew there was a reason we run away, but I still missed them because no one else understood my obsessions. I was a very obsessive kid. And when I get to rural Virginia, I read all the books in the library, and I can't find any more books worth reading, so I read mythology. And I'm reading lots of mythology, and I think mythology is pretty great, and I decide that mythology's my passion for a while, and I'm always looking for this obsession that's going to dominate my life. And the one thing you need to know for the section I'm going to read is that my father taught me how to swear, and we would practice swearing together, and he would really, it was a bonding thing, it would teach me a lot of profanity. And so in this section, I'm in the trailer park, and it's at a time when my father doesn't know where we're living, and I'm not supposed to contact him myself. We can only call him if my mother's there from a payphone. And I've run out of mythology books, and I've noticed that the redneck next door likes to go out to the field near the trailer park and take his metal detector and find Civil War objects that are in the field. So I convince him that if I dig for him, I convince him to let me dig for him so I can go along and dig up artifacts. Over the next hour, each time Earl's detector bleated, I dug up Civil War treasures, buckles from belts, boots, and harnesses, as well as lead bullets, dozens of them, a few mashed from impact. The thrill of discovery had me panting, hunched, scouring the red clay with my fingers until the object came into sight. This, I suddenly knew, was my purpose. Archaeology. Why hadn't I realized sooner? I loved mystery, and what could be more mysterious? I felt that we'd soon discover something amazing, a golden statue of Zeus or a Roman helmet. An old farmer came out to see what we were up to. I dug up a safe one time, he said, his eyes eerily blue in his sun-bronzed face. What kind of safe? Earl tugged at his checkered shirt as if the afternoon heat were unbearable. I leaned close. An old safe, the farmer said. A very old safe. It must have been 30 years ago. I was digging a septic field. I found that safe down in the ground, and I'll be darned if I didn't spend 4 years trying to get it open. Maybe 5. I used everything. Sledgehammer, welding kit, but that door wouldn't budge, so I put it back in the ground. You did what? Earl exclaimed. I was practically bent double, as if to gnaw my way through the earth to find that safe. I got annoyed, the old man said. But there are stories of buried safes with Civil War gold, Earl told him. Did it have any markings on it? Do you remember where you buried it? The old man looked off, his lips drawing down as if with thought or to smirk. He shrugged. I done forgot. It's been some time now. Then he walked away, shuffling and bent forward, the baggy brown seat of his jeans hanging off his ass as if beneath he were nothing but bones, a malicious skeleton, one of the Confederate dead risen from the stale earth to torment us. The idea of the safe made me crazy. I couldn't stand it. I lay awake at night and pictured myself digging. I heard the precise moment when the shovel's blade hit the rusted iron. I felt the jolt in my arm and sat up. I got out of bed as if to go pee and stood in the bathroom, turned on the light, and looked in the mirror. I found a safe, I told my reflection. It's full of gold. Then I shut off the light and went back to bed and pictured myself digging again, waiting to hear the clank of the shovel blade, shivering with anticipation. But I still couldn't sleep, so I took my notebook and went into the bathroom. I sat on the toilet and wrote about a field where Civil War phantoms appeared under the full moon, living out hopeless battles. Buried beneath them was an old safe that the story's hero, a boy archaeologist, heard about from a spooky old man who vanished into the shadow of the forest. The boy had to find someone to help him dig it up and release the spirits of the dead so that he could claim the gold. But the only person he could ask was his father. I hesitated, pencil poised, trying to decide what kind of father this should be. if he could be trusted with the secret and what he'd do if allowed into the story. Frustrated, I went back to bed. Each afternoon, returning from school, I paused at a rise in the trailer park road. I looked out over the flat roofs, some narrow, some double-wide, beyond the patchwork of cramped yards with rusted hibachis and cannibalized cars, to the field where we'd been prospecting. I hated the farmer for forgetting where the safe was. Only my father would understand. He might be sitting at home sharpening a knife or lying in wait for my mother in the shadows next to the post office, but he would definitely understand about the safe. I couldn't bear it. His number was in one of the cards he sent, and I went to a payphone and called collect. We'd talked only a few times since I'd left, briefly, with my mother passing the receiver around, and this was the first time I'd called him on my own. How bad could he really be? My mother and aunt whispered together at night about him, and several times my mother had told me he was dangerous and that we had to keep our lives secret from him. As the phone rang, my heart kicked like a car-struck jackrabbit in its frantic final seconds. "Hey, Deni," he said after he'd accepted the charges. "Are you alone?" "Yeah," I told him, thinking how strange he sounded, raspy and far away. He almost croaked when he talked, as if he'd gotten old. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Well, yeah, but there's something I wanted to ask you about." "Oh," he said, his voice suddenly clear. "What is it? What's going on?" "There's this safe," I told him. Instantly, I felt on the verge of tears. "A safe?" "Yeah, a safe." I repeated the farmer's story, the iron box and the red Virginia clay pulsing like a heart just beneath the tawny grass, waiting to be dug up and split open. "That farmer, that old guy," my father asked, "he doesn't really remember?" "He doesn't remember. He doesn't." My father was silent. "That fucker's lying," he shouted. "No one just puts a safe back in the ground. He said he did. I don't believe it. He said he was frustrated. He tried to open it. God damn it, I would have gotten it open. It's not that hard." "It isn't?" "No, it isn't. Son of a bitch. I wonder what was in it. What a fucking idiot." "Yeah," I said, "he's an idiot." "That's right," he told me. "He's a goddamn fucking idiot." I laughed. Then he asked how things were going. I talked a bit about school and stupid teachers and fishing and what I was eating these days. There was a long silence, and I realized that this was the moment when he would ask the questions that made my mother angry. What our phone number was, or where we lived. But he just cleared his throat and told me he loved me. I said that I loved him, and we hung up. I put my forehead against the hot plastic of the phone. Had I betrayed her? I hadn't told him our number or home address. He hadn't asked. He'd seemed genuinely interested in the safe, and with good reason. But then I grit my teeth. If he hadn't been so crazy, we could have stayed. We wouldn't be here in a trailer park. Did I hate him? She was terrified of him. There had been the night by the ferry. He'd knocked out the man and broken the woman's jaw, and I'd seen the bleeding scratches on his face, the blood on his hands. This newness, the thrill of this new world had worn off. Like one of those fat football halfbacks in remedial ed, the blazing sun pushed me to the ground and pulled my pockets inside out and gave me a kick. I dragged myself home, but that night I couldn't sleep, wondering if I hated him, wondering what was in the safe, or how he knew that safes were easy to open. He and I could dig it up and open it. Inside, there'd be something amazing.